Hello, class. Craig here, back in the rocking chair. Happy Halloween. Uh, Very cool to be talking about Macbeth right around Halloween, as the play has that kind of element of the witches and so on and so forth. So let's pick up where we left off. Couple themes to remind everyone of, right? A leitmotif is a recurrent theme throughout a musical or literary composition. The recurrent theme is what's fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air. Remember, they're hovering above. The witches are in control, right? And things are not what they seem. This notion of appearances versus reality, when you Google it, right, this idea comes up. And notice how is appearances versus reality shown in Othello? How is it in Macbeth, right? You could also look at it from Hamlet. And then it also has the idea, according to Bertrand Russell. Remember, there's a document, Bertrand Russell, on critical thinking from criticalthinking.org. If you noticed in my last video, I mentioned that as well. So you can look at this notion of appearances versus reality in any of the Shakespeare plays we're going to focus on, or any text for that matter, whenever duplicity is involved, double dealing or deceitfulness. Remember, Lady Macbeth urges Macbeth to appear one way but act another, right? She's saying that it's very important that you don't look suspicious. And at times she chastises him as well because she doesn't think he can pull it off. And in many ways, she's right. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, her reasoning to persuade him was based on fallacies, right? Mistaken beliefs, one based on an unsound argument, right? Meaning there's no logic behind it. So remember, she said, if, right, you love me, and if you're a man, you'll do it. Hidden assumption, we show our love by killing people. Hidden assumption, right? We show our masculinity by killing people. And then she says, when you durst do it, then you were a man. She creates a straw man, an intentionally misrepresented proposition that's set up because it's easier to defend than an opponent's real argument. Remember, he never said he was going to do it, right? He even says, we will speak further. So for her, if he said he was going to do it, right, and now he's saying he's not going to do it, she makes an interesting point. She can't trust him. If we judge one's love for another by murdering people, then okay. And if we judge our masculinity by murdering. So all of her three appeals are very fallacious, yet she's able to appeal to his emotions. And even though he tells us on numerous occasions, I should not do this, in reality, I should not do this, right? He discounts it and he goes ahead with the deed. So now, right, we'll kind of continue looking at the play with our essay 3 ideas and critical thinking strategies in mind, but specifically those of you that might be writing about addiction. There's a very interesting scene here at the beginning of 2.3. Remember, when people went to the theater back then, they wanted to be entertained. So there would be a little bit of comic relief or something to switch the mood, if you would, during these tragedies. And in this particular moment, we see here that the porter who answers the door to the castle was out drinking the night before. And when the character asks him why it took him so long to answer the door, he explains the effects of alcohol. And again, Lady Macbeth uses alcohol to drug the guards. Gertrude drinks from the chalice. Hamlet talks about how they're gonna drink excessively to celebrate this hasty marriage between his mother and Claudius. We see alcohol plays a role in Othello as well, as one of the characters loses his cool and actually loses his job because of his illogical behavior while drunk. Again, it's not just Shakespeare. If you wanted to write about addiction to drugs or alcohol, you could look at how substances take away one's critical thinking skills. Remember what Banquo says when they saw the witches: have we eaten on the insane root that takes the reason prisoner? So the porter has a very graphic description. Again, it's meant to be somewhat entertaining. He basically starts by saying, you know, if I was a porter in hell, I'd get tired answering the door because people are constantly lying and cheating and stealing, and more people would go to hell than heaven. And again, just he's reflecting on this idea of duplicity, on the double dealing and deceitfulness of people. So he answers the door, and now Macduff says, "What were you doing?" And he says, "We were carousing, right, until morning." Carousing means drinking with your friends. And he says, "And drink is a provoker of three things." And you can read the three things that he mentions. And boy, oh boy, is it still true today. So as you kind of read through that, notice that this light interlude is interrupted now with everyone wondering if Duncan is awake, right? So Macbeth says, "I'll bring you to him," right? And again, look at Macbeth's duplicity. "The labor we delight in physics pain. This is the door." Oh, it's not real work because I'm just doing this for you and Duncan and for the kingdom. Again, he just murdered Duncan. It's absurd how he's able to appear one way, right? But in reality, act another way. However, we see for the second time, right? Lady Macbeth has to cover up for him. Remember, he did not plant the daggers. He got freaked out and he couldn't finish the plan. She had to go back and clean up his mess, right? Notice here, before they discovered Duncan's body, nature has been revolting. And this is really important because to kill a king back then, it was a regicide. It was a special kind of murder, right? Regicide, because the king was considered the closest human being on earth to God. So it was like an act against God if you killed a king. So notice how in nature, right, everything is just sheer chaos, right? Macbeth says, "Yes, 'twas a rough night." And Lennox says, I can't remember when it's been such a crazy night. Strange screams of death. So Macduff comes out after discovering Duncan's body, and he says, right, "Confusion now hath made his masterpiece." Look at that personification there. "Most sacrilegious murder," that's what I mean, right? It's an act against God. "Hath broke open the Lord's anointed temple and stolen hence the life of the building." Right? And they say, "What do you mean, His Majesty?" So what does Macduff say? "Everybody look inside." So everybody's kind of awakening. They awaken his children. Lady Macbeth, right, comes out, and Macduff says, "Oh, I couldn't even tell you, right? It's not for you to hear what I can speak." Little does he know, right? The repetition, here we go, gender criticism in a woman's ear would murder as it fell, right? And she's, of course, duplicity personified, right? "In our house, what? Oh my gosh," right? So as we move forward, here's where it gets interesting. Macbeth starts ruminating from a philosophical standpoint, right? That this kind of this nothingness of life. It's kind of the beginning of his disenchantment with life, his nihilism, right? Lennox then says it looks like the guards did it, right? Their plan worked, right? Everybody says, okay, their faces, they're covered with blood. So what does Macbeth say? "Oh, yet I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them." And everybody's like, what? So look at his appeal here. Again, he's trying to say that this was a crime of passion, and that if you loved Duncan like I loved Duncan, you would have done what I did. Doesn't seem very logical to me. Doesn't seem like a sound argument. "My violent love outran the pauser reason." Is that not the insanity defense in itself? "Here lay Duncan, his silver skin laced with his golden blood, and his gashed stabs looked like a breach in nature for rune's wasteful entrance. There the murderers, steeped in the colors of their trade, their daggers, unmannerly breached with gore. Who could refrain that had a heart to love, and in that heart courage to make love's known?" So if you loved him and you had courage, you would have done what I did. Again, those of you that are writing about courage, perhaps, is this logical courage, right? Do you find his reasoning to be effective and logical in his own defense, or is he guilty of fallacious reasoning? So back to, right, and so what is Lady Macbeth realizes, right, how illogical he was. So she pretends to faint, right? And everybody says, "Look to the lady." The diversion works. So again, because he did something he was not supposed to do. This was not part of the plan for the second time. And she has to create a diversion, just like she had to go back and place the daggers. So notice how they say they're going to put on manly readiness after this, right? Let us meet and question in this most bloody piece of work to know it further. Fears and scruples shake us. In this great hand of God I stand, and thence against the undivulged pretense I fight of treasonous malice, right? And Macduff says, so do I. And they all say, yes. So what does Macbeth say? Let's briefly put on manly readiness and meet in the hall together. Interesting choice of words. Now Malcolm and Donalbain stick around, and they realize there's daggers in men's smiles. The near in blood, the nearer bloodier. They recognize the duplicity, and they realize that they cannot trust anyone, because what's fair is foul and foul is fair. That recurring theme that appearances are not like the realities. So they decide to logically split up, and one's going to go to Ireland and one's going to go to England. So that being said, I hope you found Act 2, Scene 3's analysis helpful. Next up will be Act 2, Scene 4, and so on, and I will continue to look at them from the perspective of Essay 3 and how you could use Macbeth as a possible source for your extended definition essay. Please let me know if you have any questions. As always, thanks for watching and listening, and until next time.